I ordered mine I ordered mine like I don't remember how long ago, but it was a while ago.
I yeah, I got the Kindle one because naturally getting a paperback is going to be a little bit more challenging for me. So, yeah, and I also needed to read it in time. So,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry, my bad. I thought you
I
meant
got it.
in general. I apologize.
Huh?
I apologize. I thought he was talking to the group. He had trouble getting it.
Ah,
I did not.
he might have been. I could have had trouble getting it for some reason or another. I don't know. Wasn't there like some snowstorms? That was several months ago.
I was
Um,
actually about to say, yeah, my second book did come late because it was stuck in a couple of US places because I live in like the boonies in Pennsylvania and there were snowstorms the past couple of weeks.
oh,
So mine did get delayed because of snow, my other one. So
hmm. Yeah, there's a whole lot of reasons why it could have been difficult to get your hands. Um,
And I
uh,
have two copies because I have this one and I have a signed copy that I got.
oh,
oh, it's
nice.
like does one of them have like a hollow cover with like, I don't know, like the foil? I don't know, it's sort of
I
like
don't know if I don't know if
Yu-Gi-Oh
she has
cards or
any
something.
like special prints of the book, but if she
I
did, I
know
definitely would
like,
have bought one.
I
Because
would
I
have
know
bought
there's like
I
special
if you can't
edition
see, but
Goosebumps books with like the embossed cover that sort of looks a bit 3D. You get one of those.
because
I don't
you
know.
can't see, but I have like this collection of like really like pretty books that I buy all the time, even though I probably shouldn't. Because part of me says it's a waste of money, but part of me doesn't. But the more part of me doesn't care, just wants it because it's pretty. So, and then they're not that
Hmm.
expensive. So usually, the most I've ever paid for like a really nice copy of a book is probably like $50, which is not. And usually, if I pay that much, I'm usually getting more than one. Usually, it's for like a series or like a set. Usually, is when I spend the most money on them. But and then I'm getting multiple books, so really, you're not spending that much money per book, which is what I tell myself when I buy them, even though I could get them for like $2. But I mean, but it's not to read; it's because they're pretty. Like
They're for a
they're
decoration.
art. It's art. It's art. I decorate my life.
You wanna feel like Belle in Beauty and the Beast and just have like walls of books.
Oh my God, that honestly is my dream. Like my no, like when growing up, the only dream I ever had for my house was to have like a study and then I have like a huge library. So
Hmm. There's like
like
I don't know, like oak shelves or something. Maybe that's getting a bit pricey.
I don't know. I'll probably do like something not. I probably would do something like I'll probably like build a shelf because I think that's probably like the most economical way to do it and it's the most flexible way. But anyway, what are so I guess we should start maybe oh some people are showing up. See if you wait long enough, people show.
Oh, that's good.
15 minutes is about.
Hmm.
Yeah, you gotta go put on a
Um,
CP time.
like say, I don't know. Showing up on time's hard sometimes. I find it easy though because I have nothing going on at the moment. But that might change once I have
Well,
a job, and then I'll
I
be
yeah,
sad.
I because it's my book club, I plan on days when I have nothing to do, so it's fine for me to plan. But I can understand how that's why I don't usually make it such a big deal when, we don't have as many people because understand obviously people have lives and even though it's on a like, people have different things to do. But um how did you guys feel about the book overall? Like was it um enlightening for you? How did you I know that most of us have like I don't know if you knew Clarkisha before reading this book, but me and Clarkisha are mutuals on Twitter. So and we talk every now and then. So I think that for me it was a no-brainer to get the book, but it was definitely an experience reading it and feeling like I was, getting the lore behind Clarkisha in a way that um you kind of only really can in this sort of medium unless you like, she had like a I don't know, like a blog or something. I probably wouldn't know more about a lot of this stuff, but just like Twitter is a very touch medium where like people don't really end up sharing, usually that much unless it's for like different things. Like you kind of catch things when they happen, but they don't nobody usually people don't really go on like long parades about their personal life. So it was really great to feel like to get this understanding of what makes Clarkisha, and I was honestly I was a little I was like, cause the when she put Clarkisha Kent on the as the author's name on the book, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then like reading it and then finding out, what her actual name is, it was also really fun because like it's something that, like she goes colloquially by Clarkisha Kent. I guess for like writers, it's more of like it's really common for them to have pen names. So I guess it's just not even something I think about a lot. So I guess it was interesting to um get that sort of perspective on Clarkisha's life.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I bought it obviously because oh, sorry, my cat. I followed her on Twitter for years, and it felt at times like this book was made specifically for me. I mean, we're around the same age and a lot of the cultural things, and coming out as bi in college and my disability worsening when I was in college, and like just all of this stuff was, I started reading it, and like sometimes I would get like really into it and I would read like the start of a chapter, and I'd be like, all right, I definitely need to put this down right now and go do something else. It's not this, and like absorb for a while because I'm going to get super emotional reading this next chapter. So I really like being on that kind of journey with her, and it being so funny and also crying a lot. But I really, really enjoyed this because it really did feel like somebody wrote it especially for me. So
That's really so beautiful. I think that well, I buddy read this to my friend JR, because we read some nonfiction books, like pretty much once a month. We read like a nonfiction book together as like a buddy read, and this we decided to do this one because we had just so happened to just have finished one book, and then I was gonna read this anyway and he was gonna read it anyway, so we were like we had decided to read another book but we pushed it off to read this one together. And we also had similar experiences where we had to like we broke it down to like we talked about like every 100 pages. So we did 100, 200, and then we still haven't done our wrap up, because we're probably gonna do it like tomorrow night. But it was really we were talking about how we relate to it in different ways. So it's really interesting to hear from someone that just felt like they like completely related to Clarkisha's story, because me, I'm a little bit younger than Clarkisha. My friend JR is a little bit older than Clarkisha. So we were kind of coming at it from like two different directions. He's bisexual. And I grew up we both grew up in the church in a similar way. We both sort of had like I came out kind of early. Um he came out in college. So we had like different things that we related to Clarkisha on. So it's really interesting to hear from someone who related a lot more to Clarkisha's story specifically. And I just thought it was really interesting. So Ian, was there like a did you feel like you related to Clarkisha in some certain ways?
Um, I don't know if it's nearly as extreme, but and like it's kind of interesting because I almost don't relate to her on any axis. It's like my parents aren't religious in any way and stuff like that, and also I don't live in the US and my parents aren't immigrants either. But I did
I guess your
notice like
dad is kind of in a way, right?
my mum immigrated from England, which doesn't
Okay.
really count because Australia just goes, oh, they're Caucasian and speak English, so I don't care. But so yeah, I don't think she doesn't have like some sort of immigrant journey situation going on. But I'm gonna say um I sort of found some interesting through lines in just like the way the parents sort of behaved, and like I'd say definitely nothing nearly as like
Extreme.
intense as like
Okay.
as described in the book, but definitely like some of the things like how like definitely just the whole situation where it's like you definitely needed to have therapy before you had a kid, and like just that relating to that situation, because just being an emotional stopgap for your parent, for your like emotionally immature parents, I definitely related to. Um, but yeah, I'd say that's like the closest thing. But as for knowing Clarkisha before this book was released, I fear I haven't really been on Twitter massively up until this point, but I knew who Clarkisha was because her tweets usually would have ended up on my timeline, at least before the For You page got fucked over by Elon Musk. Um, but so yeah, a lot of her tweets would circulate onto my page just through the people I followed. But yeah, to me, I was just like, oh, that's like the big Twitter person. So I was sort of surprised to see her name in this Discord, in the Discord for this chat, because I'm like, hang on a sec, she's like Twitter royalty. Wow. But yeah. Um, but yeah, I'd say yeah, like the most relatable element. I sort of feel like a phony saying it, but like there were definitely like echoing elements, like just like things you realize as an adult. Like when you're a child, you just sort of like accept that like your parents know what the fuck they're doing, and then it becomes like clearer as you get older that they don't, and they've sort of sabotaged you in a lot of ways. But yeah. Anyway, um, that's my thing. I sort of feel like I'm talking out of my ass a bit.
No, I think that the particular way that I like to talk about books is that I like to relate it, talk about, especially when it comes to like nonfiction books. I think that, and we're talking about like a lot of queer nonfiction books that I've read. I think that it's really interesting to come at it and say like maybe some of the things that you particularly took from it and how it speaks to your intersection of just and how you know how it hits you particularly specifically on your journey. So like, reading books like this one specifically, it really made me think about, you know, certain things like, oh my gosh, I went through that. That's so crazy that Clarkisha also went through something similar to like that. Like when she talked about like her freshman year when she got disabled her freshman year. I also got disabled my freshman year of college. So it was really interesting. Like I'm not disabled anymore. I don't I think
Was
that
it?
my experience with disability was a lot different from hers because my even though my injury was a lot less intense than her injury was. Like she tore ACL, which is really
Yeah, that's like really
commonly like
serious.
really serious injury, whereas I just, broke my foot, which is like something that's not nearly seen in the same way. It's kind of like a common injury, where people be like, oh yeah, that's just like an injury that people get, and you don't really get treated that differently. And then also I was lucky enough to have broken mine while working. So I didn't really have to worry about insurance and things like that because it was all covered under like workers' protection. And and then because it was that, I also got, workers' comp. So I also got um a stipend while I was working. So I didn't have to worry about, finances in the same way. So it was just really harrowing to like think about like how different things could have gone. And I think that it's interesting because growing up, I had always like kind of like coveted like breaking a bone in a certain way, like getting injured. I don't know, it was just like this thing where I just felt like growing up, which is kind of like this thing where you would like see people that were injured
It's almost like
and
a life event or
yeah, like
something
it
that
felt
you're
like a
missing
rite of
out on.
passage that I hadn't gone through because I had never broken a bone or had like a really serious injury. And I think about how crazy it is that I thought about it like that. And then to see how like this constant struggle that disabled people have on a day-to-day basis. And then to know that some people see it as like uh a rite of
Like
passage and something that just happens like a blip in their life, where it's
like
like
a story arc or something.
right. And then
That like finishes and then you're like, okay, I'm back to not having a broken body part anymore.
yeah, where it's like some people have like this constant struggle with disability, and I didn't even think about it like that. And to hear, Clarkisha talk about how hers sort of like developed in that way, and how it would have been so easy for her to be like um persistently disabled based on the kind of injury that she had. I didn't even think about anything like that. I mean,
Mm,
I think that once I did break my foot, there were like fears that like I wouldn't be able to fully recover. But I think once it became clear that I would, because the injury that I had was like really slight. I didn't even have to get surgery. It was like I I mean, it was just I was just so relieved, and I think that like the you don't like once you're faced with that fear that like, oh, you might not actually like recover from this. It's kind of because at first when I first broke my foot, I didn't even think it was that big of a deal. And then like so to get I like kind of like tried to work through it, and then like someone was like, "Hey, I think maybe you should go to the doctor." And then at first I didn't want to go to the doctor because I didn't know if I really had like insurance like for real. And then once I found out that it was like all covered under workers' comp and like all that other kind of stuff, I was relieved in a way. But I know Tiff, you were talking about your struggles with disability. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? If you could.
Yeah, especially I think with specifically being in America, and not having health insurance, because my parents didn't have it at all. So yeah, sure. Um Sean wants to speak after me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Um and so it happened when I was in my sophomore year, but it had been compounding. So my knee would do this thing where I would be walking and sometimes it would just dislocate and I would just collapse. And we tried to do physical therapy when I was in high school, but there just weren't the resources when I was in college. So I just kind of stayed like that, in constant fear that, like, one time it happened when my now fiance, when we had our old apartment, like I was just walking down the stairs one time and thankfully he was in front of me because it just, popped out. And I just went down. And I finally did get surgery. They reattached it. Everything's all good. But I think about what could have happened if I did have health insurance back then. It wouldn't have had to be a thing for this long, and how it's like compounding, and especially when your parents are like more harm than good when you're healing. Like when I
Oh,
did get
yeah.
my surgery, I was firmly moved out of my parents' house. It was after college. I lived with my boyfriend. Now we live in this house together. Um, and she was like, you can come home to heal. It's like, I can't heal there. That is the source of so much of my pain and trauma. And I was so grateful. My sister like texted Joe because my mom was texting me crazy during, and I was like half passed out. And she texts Joe, my fiance. She's like, take Tiffany's phone and block my mom. Just block her. Don't even tell her you're doing it. Just she's got to stop. Because they were, acutely aware that I wasn't going to be able to heal there. So I was very grateful in that fact to have somewhere where I could heal and a partner who was supportive. But yeah, I just stayed like that through college, which made work difficult. But somehow I managed. I don't know. I'm good. I yield my time, I guess. Yeah.
I believe
Oh, sorry,
Sean
I
had.
didn't know
Oh,
if I was gonna get called on or not, so I just wanted to
Oh,
wait.
okay.
Sorry about that. And I did turn my video on for a second. My camera just glitches. It's just started glitching to the point where sometimes it cuts out. So I was like, let me just wait till I actually speak for a second. Hi y'all. I'm Sean. I'm so sorry I didn't get to make it to all the other book club meetings. It's been a series of unfortunate events for the past like 5.5 months, and things are just starting to get solid. But I also I'm sorry if I sound very rushed. I was in the middle of finishing an unkindness of ghosts, and I
I'm
thought
like
book
at
club
the
was on
last bit.
Tuesday, and then I like tried to speed read it today, which was a terrible idea. But honestly, these go very hand in hand for me as a trans Black person who's also queer. Um, and I just when I tell you like it looks like I've had this book for like years and years. This is a very well loved book, and I cannot thank Clarkisha enough for writing it. It was an honor to read it, honestly. And I think Alan, the same thing that you were saying, just like seeing her name in here, I was like, this is. I think for me, that's when I started taking more care of the book. I think I wanted to read it slower, and I really wanted to be more intentional in reading it rather than just try and read it, before we got to book club.
Right.
And I think honestly, like there are so many points that stuck out to me, but the for any young Black girl or seasoned Black woman, the journey back to their body is central both to their origin story and their life story. That has never been more true for me. I did come out my freshman year in college and was also and still am in a very homophobic and transphobic and very Christian family. So like those parts were definitely very point. It was a lot of like stopping and having to decompress. I just go stand like on the porch in the backyard with my hands on my hips, like, well, damn. Mhm. And it was a beautifully done book because it really just had me sit down sometimes and be like, there's a lot of stuff I'm gonna have to process from this because a lot of it I related to. And coming into my body, I'm like, I started all of my gender affirming care about 3 years ago now, but it was after I got out of college and just like the journey that I've taken with relation to my body up until then and then even still was just so it wasn't a one-to-one, but it was just so reflective here. And it really I don't know how to say enough of like actual genuine praise for this book because it really just gave me time to pause and understand better, I think, my journey in reading about this journey. And then like at the same time reading this book, which was a very almost similar experience in terms of like body and just like that the experience with the self and where I fit in, what purpose is. So it was a very raw book and it left me feeling very raw in a very transformative and a very caring way. And also I'm gonna have to sleep from when we get off here probably till I go to work in the morning because it packed a punch. But
Yeah.
it was a good punch, but a punch nonetheless.
Yeah, that's how I felt a lot about it. Like I would have to take breaks, not because I didn't love it, but because it's like, all
It's
right, I
like,
had a
yeah,
very similar
like
experience and I need to go
so many
unpack
dog
that.
ears. Yes, so many different dog ears where it's just like direct quotes and she would just say something. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think particularly about that quote of living in this like really homophobic, transphobic, racist ass world. And what, it's the people that you're at home who do the first harm and the most hurt to you. And it's wild that like, you don't even think about that sometimes. Like I'll forget half the time what white people say to me, honestly. But it's the shit that my family said to me that really stuck and stung and hurt, because some of them still say that shit.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm old enough and I can tell them to F off now, but it hurts a little bit still nonetheless. So
exactly.
It's almost
Yeah,
like you forget like how like you said, like you forget like how homophobic it was because it was just so normal at the time that like when you once you like get to like a regular space and you think about it, you almost like are so happy to just be out of that space that you don't even
yes,
think
it's
about
like
it
it didn't
anymore.
have to be like that, actually.
yeah.
Like I didn't like my mom didn't have to like freak out like when she found like gay porn on my phone or like something like that. Like
Mhm.
it's just like but like and my mom would freak out if she found porn at all in my opinion because she thought I was like, I don't know, corrupted or something. But it was just like so much stuff happened and like it was just so prolonged and so I was just so indoctrinated like she was in this kind of in the same way where like you felt like it was your responsibility to like spread this gospel that you had been that you had been born into like in a certain way and then like realizing that coming like and then like slowly coming to the realization that you actually didn't care about any of that stuff and like none of it actually mattered to you at all even though like I think it's hard to like completely get rid of that sense of spirituality. I'm definitely not completely at the place I think Clarkisha is. But I think that, it was there was just something like and we were talking about like the community that the me and my friend GR when we were bloody reading, we were talking about like the community that that church kind of gives you. And then like when you kind of save yourself from that environment, like how stark it is to like when you like get out, when you like get away for college and you get out of your parents' house, like you don't realize, like you're so hell bent on getting out, you don't even kind of even realize what that means. And then so like when you like kind of like how Clarkisha in the book kind of finds herself alone in that moment, and you get to like this depth of loneliness that you didn't even know about because you were surrounded by family. And even if it was like this really toxic environment, you kind of still had those people there in a way. And then when you're by yourself and you're really alone for the first time in your life, it just kind of hits you and you're like, wow, like I just like there's no one actually here. And then it's even worse when you have like that physical distance from your family. And it just like it's such a like that was the point in the book. I was like, wow, like it just like you just get
Yeah.
hit with like that. Like
I,
I just remember how many times I just felt so alone. Like in that, and like I was just on my own, even though my even though like at that point in my life, like I wasn't even surrounded by homophobia in the same way because, at that point, I was semi estranged from my parents, and my siblings weren't. I had a really close relationship, as opposed to Carkeisha. I had a really close relationship with my siblings, so we would still really talk. But just because of the physical distance that I tried to ascribe myself away from them, it just gave I didn't really have anybody to lean on. And then you get to college and you realize, oh, like a lot of people don't have that experience. A lot of people still go home every weekend. A lot of people still have like this really close relationship with their family. And then when you don't have that, it just it's just also another reminder about the things that you don't have. And and then that's when you kind of really get to those low moments.
yeah, that's something I didn't think of when you asked me earlier, because like I during my therapy session, I sort of like identified that my defining experience day to day is one of like loneliness, because I basically did like quit my high school friend group called Turkey. So it totally isn't the same thing as like totally dropping communication with your family, but like I basically went for like several years where I was just basically feeling nothing. And also just like the other experience of like basically developing depression while I was at uni. Um it was like it's like yeah, for me though, like the inciting incident was like sort of low key getting abused by one of my tutors. Like they were just like singled me out and stuff. But yeah, like I don't know. I think I definitely related to that situation with loneliness when she was at Chicago University. Um, but yeah, like I basically just felt nothing since I left my friend group, and then, as you might know, Alan, I basically suddenly found a bunch of people online that I sort of, I don't know, I don't know why, but I just sort of like clicked with a bunch of people online, and then I was like, shit, they all live on the other side of the planet. Damn.
That's
Um,
crazy.
so now I sort of feel this like harrowing loneliness. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of still there, but this is like present tense for me because like I was literally feeling it all today, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness I have a book club later because like I sort of didn't have enough energy to run Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna say that's something I forgot to mention, and oh, and also about the disability. Again, it's not exactly the same thing. I'm always like two steps away from being able to relate to anything. Um, the thing about disability, because like I have like mild autism, or do they call it like high functioning? I'm not sure, but like I say like my family isn't homophobic, but they are very ableist when it comes to things like neuroatypicality. It's like I'm remembering all of these situations where like my mum would say, be no abnormal behavior, Ian, etc. And like if after like a social event, like there would be this really patronizing thing where they'd just be like, oh, Ian was very good today because I didn't have any tells of having autism. So I sort of, I don't know, and like a few degrees of separation. I sort of relate to the like situation where like your parents are like, damn, I wish my kid wasn't as shitty as they are. Like
Yeah.
that sort of like general sentiment.
Yeah, I was a pretty sick kid, not gonna lie. Like when you guys talk about like kind of getting like a status symbol almost if you like, break an arm or something, like the kid on crutches. I was always the kid on crutches. I was running backwards as an assignment in gym class, and I told my gym class teacher that it was unsafe. I fell back and broke my arm. And then I broke my arm in high school doing the same exact thing, but in marching band, in the same exact way, in the same exact place, on the same exact hand. So I've been, a lot of my life has been with disability and sickness, and I could just tell, like, from the way that my parents, like, looking back on this book, how like, yeah, I was already the big kid. I was already like, the black girl. Especially, I went to a school that was mostly white, so I'm like one of the only kids in like my AP classes and stuff. And like how much they didn't want anything else for me. Like I couldn't be anything. I was already that. Like I was already black and fat and a girl. And they didn't want anything outside of that. Like almost ignoring that I had these things, acting like they would go away and then they would just get worse and then became things they couldn't ignore. But like, so I guess mine was more in a way of like, I'm also the crazy younger sibling, so I've just forced my family a lot of times to stop being the way that they were. I became not rebellious but outspoken pretty early. So I didn't really relate to in that sense because I was never afraid of my parents to decide what they did. I just always thought of them as cowards. But yeah, I can relate to like not wanting to be another thing, like getting diagnosed with the mental health. I like just left the therapist's office and never came back when she told me that I was bipolar until I got a new
Yeah.
therapist, because I was like, I'm not doing this. I can't be something else. And getting over that I can be and I can take up that space and be as much as I need to be. But definitely reading this book, it's like they were trying to shrink anything else that I was because I was already so much as a kid.
And just like touching off of that, I ended up, especially like seeing where I'm at now, like you would never think I was a diehard athlete for years, but like that's what I threw myself into because that's like what I was good at, and people were happy when I was achieving things. And so like I was in high school, I was like a three-sport athlete, but like I would always roll my ankle. And like just how you were saying, like all the injuries in childhood, I was the one that had the weird injuries. So like for instance, when I was in summer camp, we were playing Red Rover and it was unstoppable force meets immovable object. Long story short, I had chipped my tooth playing Red Rover because I hit the arms so hard and it didn't, their bond didn't break. So I just went slamming down on the ground and not even like face forward, just on my back. But my tooth was like, I've had enough actually, and just popped out of there. So it was like just stuff like that. But like in high school, when I was playing basketball, I rolled my ankle, I want to say at least 20 times between like spraining and straining it, just like 20 times, probably each ankle. And then when I got to college, when we learned how to lift and everything, like I was like, okay, my body hurts, this hurts, that hurts, but as long as I'm improving, as long as I'm achieving, I'm fine. And now, like here I am on, turning 27 this year, and my body is breaking apart. I can't sit in the same position for too long. My ankles lock up all the time. Like my knees give out when I go up the stairs. One time my grandma was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, it just does that." And then I was like, "Well, I mean, sure, it just does that." And also, like, bro, you're 26, like, and so it was just kind of understanding that now I have to live with the cost of what it meant to disregard my own health for other people's results or for results that made other people happy. So definitely like I feel like I'm coming into understanding and having a better love for my body now because I have to like not necessarily grieving what it was before, but understanding that my body can't do the same things has made me fall in love with myself more because this body's not going to get taken care of without love and care. And if I can't love and care for it, like it's not going to be a symbiotic relationship. So I have to learn to love my body and care for my body as it is rather than as I want it to be. And that took a long time, especially realizing that I was trans on top of that. took a long time, but it's definitely understanding it back to that same quote, like it took me a long time to get here because I had to understand what I was internalizing and what I was externalizing in terms of like what I was putting my body through to make it be what I wanted, what I thought everybody else wanted it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I had COVID way before they knew COVID was in the US. I got COVID like late 2019. So I don't have any like tests saying, yes, you have COVID. What I have is a bunch of doctors tests saying, you don't have anything else that we could test you for. All these tests are just no. And yet I had like all the symptoms, everything. So it's like understanding now that it was COVID and dealing with what's become long-term effects of that too. It's like, okay, Saturn return, gotcha. I feel like we're closing in on that. We could go a little bit less hard for sure. I'm like, I get the point now. I get it. But it's definitely, it's taken me on a journey of self-love because it was forced there. Like, I would not be here without having to learn to love myself and loving myself, not just out of obligation, but because I care and I want to make it through. So it definitely, this journey has not been an easy one, but it's had like you said, a lot of defining points, but also it got me to where I am now. And it got me to a more confident spot. It's just, oh, Jesus, fuck.
Like I really started getting better at going to therapy like probably last year, and it's virtual. And nobody talks about the exhaustion that you get
Oh yeah,
from
that emotional hangover. Yeah.
like how like just physically draining it can be to unpack a lot of stuff that happened to you that was really messed up, and like understanding now that it was in fact messed up.
Yeah.
That somebody did that to you
It's like,
because you didn't really get it. Like you understood, but you weren't able to
Yes. And sometimes it's just like, oh, that doesn't seem that bad. And then you talk to somebody and they're like,
yeah,
you
my
talk to
therapist was like,
somebody
that's
about
fucked
that?
out.
I'm like, what do you mean talk to somebody about that? That didn't happen to you. What
Yeah,
you-
my therapist was
what
like,
are you
Tiffany,
Like
that's
saying?
your dad didn't
up.
tell you, your dad didn't casually mention that he used to gay bash when he was younger. Like
No, because like
that's not
why
normal.
my dad told me he told me something very violent one time, and I was like, oh, dads will be dads. And then I told that to my friend one time, and they were like, your dad said that like to you as a child, and I was like, yeah,
Like normal stuff, right? Like
what's
normal.
dads will be dads like y'all.
Oh my god, when I started going natural, which another thing
Oh my
oh
goodness.
my god, my I am God's strongest shoulder because I was the first person to go natural in my family across like all my aunts and everything.
Ooh-wee.
And I remember the first time I came home after my big chop, my dad called me a pickaninny, and he grew up in Jim Crow South.
Child.
Like we had
Mm.
words.
And my mom made me pierce my ears before I chopped my hair because she was like, we don't want anybody thinking you're a boy.
I was like, Dad, you literally had friends killed by the KKK. What is wrong with you? Why would you use that word? Like, so and just like seeing that like they decided to never heal also started to like get me on my shit. It's like, you know what? I'm not. Oh, and when my sister had my nephew, that's when, and she moved home, and I saw like all of their toxic bullshit just like happening again, and I was like, I will human shield you. If I have to. And he's like 11 or 12 now, and he's so sweet. But it's funny to see when you do actually take the initiative because you know, I come in one day, you know, my fiance's there, my friend's there, my sister, we're all sitting, and he comes and he was like, excuse me, I have an announcement. He was like, so there's this pass on Fortnite, and I know somebody here probably has $25. My sister was like, get out. Get just totally comfortable coming through. It's like, I know somebody's got $25 in here. Please give it to me.
That's crazy.
It's just like when someone who isn't normally there in like either your friend gatherings or family gatherings and stuff, someone who normally isn't there is sitting in, and they're just like there for the one day because they were visiting or in town or something, and they're just sort of sitting there going, watching the way you're like, they're watching the way people talk to you, and they're like, oh, that's. And then they'll have a conversation with you.
Talk to you like that, and I'm like,
yeah, it's a conversation with you afterwards, and you're like, that's true. I do feel bad all that. That's interesting. I do feel bad after hanging out with my friends. That's weird.
I have been that person on the outside. I'm like, do y'all like each other or no?
Hello? No, because
Like-
yes, I recently had a family gathering where that happened. we were all gathered for a very somber occasion, but I hadn't seen a lot of them in like 10, 15 years. And half of them did not know who I was because they didn't know I was trans. Nobody told them. So I was like half looking in and I was like, yo, live like this. And then I was like, and also, hi, I'm back. And so it was like, it was very restorative. We had a lot of conversations. I found out they didn't know a lot of what was going on. They thought I just like stopped talking to everybody because I hated them. And I was like, no, I thought y'all hated me. So it was a lot of reconciliation, but it was also like, I got to see how people handle trans people just off the bat. Some of them were interesting, capital I for sure. But like it was definitely interesting to see like the family dynamics that I know have played out in my immediate family and like I guess on like our side of the family because it was my grandma. We were gathered for my grandma's sister's passing, but it was because she was like our matriarch pretty much, so everybody was there, and it was interesting to see what family patterns were replicated, and then watching I guess who was the one that looked like they were like breaking the generational cycle in like each of our little family tree branches, and I would just be like, hey, you want to talk? You look real tired. Like, you want to go on the porch? You look like you got a lot that you need to say. And also you come get a hug. I love you. It was definitely interesting seeing that, looking from the inside out, and then also realizing that like now I'm also on the inside. I'm like, oh, what after that?
Oh wait, I'm the adult now. Like, oh wait, I can change this.
Literally, like, and that's the part of it. Like, it was so funny because my grandfather the other day, he was like, at some point you're gonna have to stand up for yourself. And I was like, and what if I deck you in the face? Because like that, sir. And it's like it's interesting. I will say I went through a lot of things in these past couple of years. It was like just watching Clarkisha talk about leaving and then coming back home, even if just for a moment. Like I left and moved to a whole other city like 15 hours away. And I never wanted to come back to my home city. And I'm actually back in my childhood home, which was unexpected for sure. And at the same time, like the things that I've been through made me a lot more appreciative of the effort that some of my family members make, because I know I used to just only want an end result. I didn't want effort at all. And then I like went, and I would not say I lived a lot of life. I would say I collected a lot of experiences. That's more how it feels, is I collected a lot of experiences. And now I'm a lot more appreciative of people who actually try. And like one of the things that I noticed, like my same grandfather, me and my grandparents have had a conversation about transness being that they're so very rooted in Christianity. And while I still get pushback for it sometimes, and it's strained our relationship, and I think they've understood that it strained our relationship, and so they're making an effort now because they don't want to strain it further. They want to mend it. I'm like, that's great. And so we still have like tiffs here and there. And also, one of my relatives that I never met almost got the brakes beat off him for dead naming me multiple times. And I was like, I didn't know y'all like wrote for me like that. I was like, Gage, I'm like, okay, so y'all push back here. But if he don't call me Sean, like y'all was threatening to fight him. I'm like, okay, I'm figuring it out. I'm understanding. So it's definitely been an experience meeting them where they're at. And also, there's some people I just don't want to talk to anymore. I'm like, I understand you're trying, and also don't call my phone. Don't text me. I want to get my milkshake and go home. I want to rearrange my farm on Stardew Valley. Don't text me.
To your point, yes, you can slap them in the face. I slapped my uncle in the face and everything was fine. Everybody just said, well, you shouldn't have been talking to her crazy. You know who she is. So
And you're so right.
My dad was fine with it. He was like, well, I told you she was a Roland. So, and you continued to move as you did.
And he was like, and if one day you ever have to slap me, then I would understand. I'm like, why would you tempt?
Me.
Why would you tempt? It's way too late at night. I'm already settled in. Like we were just like about to go to bed, and I was like, I understand the sentiment.
Yeah. No,
It reminds me of like when Clarkisha was like talking about how her sister was like trying to make it seem like she had to like meet her like halfway, even though she was like the abuser in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I was like, oh, I remember that. Like I remember when like after you grow up and then you come back to, and then you're like, I mean, I had that experience, not even with just my family, there's like so many people, like,
Yes.
people who bullied you in high school or something like that, like you would get in contact with them and they would be like, and they would, they would
They'll
just
be
be
like,
like,
we
act like
both made
nothing
mistakes.
happened. Do we both make mistakes? Or did you bully me? Or did
This
you
is
arrest me?
this is my aforementioned high school friend group that I ditched. After our high school reunion, they were like tried to reach out to me and be like, "Oh, I didn't like how we fell out. You want to get back to, want to like get a drink or something?" And I'm just like thumbs up emoji, and then like didn't talk to them again.
Like, you're so
Yeah.
real. I also didn't like how we fell up, but it sounds like we remember a little bit differently.
Yeah, I also had a coming to God moment, for lack of a better phrase, and dropped my high school friend group, which was definitely integral to my healing, especially since I had, like I said, in high school, a majority white friend group, which is fine. But it was like I came back from college and I just noticed like the little things a lot
Mm.
more. And then a couple of them transferred to my college, and like the jealousy of me finding friends was on full display. It's like I was here for like a whole year, and so like, and I did change. It was a good thing. I was very suicidal in high school. You should be happy that I changed and I'm
Exactly.
happier. So I was
Yeah,
like, you know what, that's it. Can't
And
do
it's
it's so
this.
easy. Like, once
crazy.
you start
Like,
celebrating yourself, it's so easy to notice when other people don't. And it takes
mm,
forever to get there sometimes. And then it's like, now why y'all not celebrating? I'm over here popping confetti and you're in the corner, man.
Yeah, like
Because you could be outside, is where you
I
could be.
but you know,
so
I've always been like the bigger friend, and you know, obviously the darkest. And I remember one time, I don't know what I was saying, but I was like, you know, kind of gassing myself up. And she was like, "Oh, well, don't get too confident." I was like, "Bitch, what?" Like,
That's
yeah,
great.
I
like
don't know
we're
if you
talking about for
guys
a night of confidence, and you told me to reel in my confidence.
do you do you guys have the like framed tall poppy syndrome in America? Maybe not. Basically, the idea is like tall poppy syndrome is like, I don't know where it came from, but it's like you have like a field of poppies and then one of them grows really tall and like there's like the temptation to like pluck the one that gets taller than the others or like cut the one that's taller than the others so they can all be at an even height. And basically, tall poppy syndrome is like when someone's like getting up too high, you want to cut them down. And like, so that's the gist of what that is. But like, yeah, just realizing that in my friend group is like, as an adult, like one of my tenets is like, at least like after like having that, because my family still does it. And it's just like, I like see in real time how like destroying the potential of people around you makes your own life shittier. Like it sounds really cheesy, but you really shouldn't be. You really should be uplifting the people around you because other this is
What am I supposed
if
to
Kind of
you
like,
point?
if you
Like, what
don't,
Literally,
your life
consequences
gets
are going to
your
be?
life becomes
literally.
worse.
Why are you
If you
passing up
cut
an
down a
opportunity to enjoy it? The world is
yeah, because it's
falling
like
apart.
you could be friends with an amazing person. That's a win for you if you
Mhm.
uplift them. And
yeah. I get so much validation. I get so much validation from my friends like achieving things and things like that. So it just
Yeah.
baffles me the way that some people just like resent everyone and don't know how to really be good friends to people. And I kind of realized that like as I was like coming into my own like growing up and like I realized what I wanted out of friendship and what friendship meant to me. And then realizing that some people don't really have a concept of that, especially when I got to college and I was meeting people that had come from like starkly different backgrounds from me. And then I was like, wow, you really don't have a concept of what being a friend is. And like everything seems so some people have like this really transactional relationship with people where
Ooh.
they feel like everything they have like a scoreboard that they keep of like
Mhm.
everything they've done for someone and then like they bring stuff up all the time around people like and there were just so many people that I met like that I was just like wow this is just really
yeah,
a pervasive thing for people.
because that was the killing blow for me with with my friends was like realizing like the envy and how it was like how they were like actively trying to sabotage me in every situation. There's like I explained this briefly in a different Zoom call. I think you might have been there, Alan. But just like because I presented, I don't know if this is coming through in like the Zoom call in these Zoom calls, but I like present a little bit more feminine than most guys, but basically just that, like, he'd be like, "Oh, don't be like that," etc., etc. But like after every social engagement, people would like me more because my friend would withhold from having a personality because he wanted to be normal. Like he didn't want to stand out. And the penalty for not standing out is everyone forgets you. And then like that, I think that made him furious. So he was like always trying to destroy me at every turn. And then a few months out from when I dropped the friend group, he like came out as queer to me. And like, I don't know, there's a whole lot of like really complex feelings around that. Like if someone is being like homophobic to you for like 15 years and then they come out as queer, it's like difficult for you to process. But
That was
It's like
definitely
that's
Gotta
just
you,
joust.
but
Now we just gotta
also
joust. We might be cool after this, but we gotta come over here. Just come over to the
Mm.
backyard for a second.
and that was kind of exact.
yeah, we ain't gotta
Come on
fight
over.
And yeah,
Mm.
and that was kind of
The
exactly what I
champagne's
was
inside
talking
the house, but
about.
we're going out back for a second to just slap box real quick.
Exactly. And that's just kind of like exactly what I was talking about with like the thing with Clarkisha and her sister, is that like I came out pretty early
I'm just
in
how
high
did I
school.
forget that this was in the book I read a few days ago. But yeah, I forgot that she had a very similar experience to this, and I'm like, oh, I don't relate to anything. Mm.
So like I came out early in high school, like my freshman year, and then so like because I was not withholding anything, and a lot of people got really resentful of me because I was really out about myself and I really didn't hold anything back, and a lot of people found that annoying or whatever. And then so they treated me a lot differently because of that, and because I wasn't in the because I didn't but because I was a lot more open with myself, where I could take a lot of people were like hiding parts of themselves. And then so like a lot of people were like really shady towards me, or they were really like um passive aggressive with me and things like that. And I'm very not passive aggressive. I'm very aggressive, and I'm very confrontational like Karkisha is. And so like I don't really let people be passive aggressive towards me. I kind of confront them about things, and it created several problems. And I think it also prevented me from getting a lot more bullied physically because I was really confrontational about the way I felt about things. And so like after graduating high school, and then you meet up with people that you met in high school, and they might come out to you in certain ways and say like oh, you were so inspirational to me or something like that. And then like
He was
to
like,
kind of
I
find out
actually have
like,
my cash app
oh,
tag
were
for that.
you?
that's great. That's great for you. That's great for that
That
you
is
felt
so
Yeah,
that
it's
way
great
like,
for
and that
you.
I
I
would
oh,
think
tell
you
in
were,
people to do.
celebration, you actually could cash out me $500. Matter of
yeah,
fact,
Like
it's
you
just
could
like
have stood
you were my
beside
meat
me.
shield for absorbing all of the homophobia.
literally, you're like, oh man, I'm so sorry about that earlier. Like, I see myself now, and I'm like, okay. And what
Like,
after
That's
that?
great.
like
Well, have fun seeing yourself. Bye.
like
Literally.
I take tips. Thank you.
Exactly. And it's like it's the way that other people like because I didn't come out officially till college. And then when I came back home, I didn't come out till I left my mom's house because I was like, I don't want no type of potential getting put out from you. This is because it's like apparently now, unbeknownst to me, I was very, very queer. So my mom just kept sweeping me back in the closet. I had no idea what the fuck was going on personally, but it's like I'm talking about the way that like at the third grade spelling bee, there were some girls bullying me in the bathroom because I was gay, and I just didn't know. They gave up because I didn't know I was being bullied. I was carrying JoJo's debut album, JoJo, if you will, on my Walkman with me, yes. And I had the CD case, and people like they cornered me in the bathroom. They were like, "Oh my god, like JoJo's pretty hot, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like 8, and they were like, "Oh, you probably want to kiss her, right?" And I was like, "Absolutely." I had not thought of that, but you're so right, I do. And they were like, "Oh, well, you should like kiss the cover of it." So I just kissed like the cover of the album, and they were like, "You like that, did you?" I was like, "I did. I enjoyed that quite a lot." And that's when they realized like they
It's like
couldn't bully me because I did not know what the fuck was going on. I thought
I would be
everybody just
honored
wanted.
to
I was
kiss
like,
JoJo.
everybody thinks she's hot. That's
Who
probably why y'all
wouldn't?
asking me that question. And it was just like so. It was stuff like that, but it was also like when I was in 7th grade, we had like what was termed a quote gay sleepover in my very small middle school class. And I thought that they just thought I was super, super ugly. Turns out they were racist. But it was like I was thinking about it the other day. I I was because I was thinking about it and I was like, when it got to like middle school, because I went to PWIs a lot. that was the place I was put in because my parents thought that it would teach me that I was entitled to everything that I worked for. And it made me feel inadequate in a lot of other ways. So, good effort for sure, I guess.
Sorry.
But like
What,
one of the things,
what does
PWI is
PWI? Oh,
predominantly
you
white
predominantly
already
white
know what
institution. No, you're good. Predominantly
Okay,
white
you knew what I
institution.
was gonna ask.
Yeah, so what I realized is that in my middle school, it wasn't necessarily that they saw me as queer as in like gay or like anything like that. They saw me as queer as in quite literally like other and weird. And so because of that, they treated me in a different way. And for a while I was like, oh, they just knew that I was gay before I knew I was gay. No, babes. That's not what that was. Because it
Nope.
was just like I think and realizing the patterns and how everything is played out in my life, it helps me better understand how I was treated then. And it was a really hard thing to reckon with that, like, oh, I thought you guys just saw me as queer before I did, and you were very affirming. Like, no, y'all just thought I was some weird person and was just like handling me any way you thought I could, which turned out to be in a both a mammy role and like a protector type role. When I say I was in sixth grade when Twilight came out, and we had to have like a sleepover, a get to know you sleepover, and they had my mom wouldn't let me read it, of course, because we don't do witchcraft, demons, wolves, and the light or whatever. But they were all running to me. They're talking about Jacob, save us. My gay ass was like, well, I don't know what's going on, but I sure I could. And I thought it was like, oh, they saw me as like the big lesbian who could save everybody, blah, 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 blah. No, they saw me as a beast. And so it was just like synthesizing that in a whole new light. I'm like, no. Well, we're here now. Now they were like, Edward's coming. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But sure.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. In her book, when she's talking about like family members who see like your father, like, or mom, talking down to you, and to escape that abuse, they also join in on it. And I think a lot more people do that, like, in public as well. Like, and that's why we usually get those messages like, oh, you're so inspiring, you're so brave, like way after the fact, because it was easier for them to just slip into the role of the oppressor. And that's why it's so empty when they're like, well, maybe we can like try to reconnect. It's like, I am not the one who tried to destroy that connection. I am not the one who burnt that bridge. I don't know why I have to be the only, I don't even know why I have to help rebuild it, because that wasn't,
I don't know why you talking
I had no part. I had no part in destroying it. So, except for existing, especially with relationships specifically like that,
Right.
Which is like, when she finally says, F her by the end, because like as soon as you let them in, they let another thing slip, and like they don't actually want to heal the relationship. They just want access to you again.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it's so transparent.
Especially with like older people, like you just see that they just want to feel like they don't have a problem with you. And then like
Yes.
so they're
Oh my
like they're
God.
reaching out and like it's just like, oh,
They want
I
they want
love you, right? And you're like,
they want the aesthetic of an unbroken family.
Literally, I'm like, y'all had the church fasting in prayer that I wouldn't get top surgery, and you just don't want to talk about. Mom, tell me why one of my relatives was literally like, I said, I'm sorry. What more do you want from me? I'm like, what do you mean? You got the whole. I had when I tell you my phone was ringing nonstop. It was like deacons, elders, just random people in the church. My grandparents on both sides of my family calling me, well, that's what makes you a woman. And I was like, we have to,
And
okay.
that is...
I'm not sure what's and it was wild because I had just realized that I was
and you're like,
trans.
so
I
you
hadn't yet
agree? This is
realized that
exactly what I need to do.
masculine non
Yes,
like I
thank
didn't know
you.
trans and non-binary was the thing that could coexist. I figured out that I was trans. They were like, well, you're not a woman without your chest. And I'm like, consider this. Consider this. Even if that were true, like, what is that? Let's keep going. And so it was just like wild. Like I've tried to reconcile with my family, not necessarily by choice, but because I haven't gotten all the way through therapy enough to go ahead and disconnect fully. Because that's like, for me, that's a cycle that I notice. And I had to realize that breaking a cycle was part of a larger cycle that I just keep falling into, which is where I get fed up, I break the cycle, and then I enter back into it. Like that's my cycle, is breaking the cycle and then entering back into the cycle. And in trying to get out of that, it's just like what you were talking about before. Like I'll say things hurt me. Like I'm like, hey, this hurts me, this offends me. And then people will be like, well, I'm offended that you're telling me that's offensive. Then we stop talking. And then like it's happened with my mom. She's texting me like we're all good to go. And for years I let that happen. And then I stopped talking to her when I moved. We stopped talking for like probably 6 months, a year. I texted her and my grandparents. I said, if y'all are not gonna make any effort to use my name or my pronouns, we're not having a relationship, point blank, period. In that same thread, my grandma said, Sean, I am so sorry. I'm gonna work on it. And my mom just did not change her tune at all. She actually sent me an email and addressed me by my full dead name. I was like, okay,
An
then we're not
email, not an
literally.
email.
No, and like that, so like that's the thing, is that like my mother has a very selective memory. She sent me care packages with like letters saying I was the devil was in me. And I'm like, hey, do you remember when you did that? And she's like, I would never do that.
No.
Girl, what the fuck do you think? I don't know what you want me to say. I'm like, I could forward the email to you for sure. And then when I like tell her I have like the actual evidence of it, she'll be like, well, I'm sorry. I already said I'm sorry. I don't know why you're holding it over my head. I'm like, because you're acting the same way. Not to bring Beyonce into this, but until I see my notes applied, it don't make sense for me to make more. And it's like that's one thing I always tell her now. Like I don't mind us healing and mending our relationship. And at the same time, you got to show me that something's changing. Because if we're gonna be in the same spot doing the same dance, we don't need to be talking. And I think she understands now that I'm very serious about that, because she seems to be baby steps. And we definitely gonna be taking more than baby steps in the future. But it's like I see her taking steps now because she understands I'm very serious. We're not having a relationship if you want to keep. What do you want me to do about it? The titties are already gone. I don't know. It's like I don't know what you're wanting me to do about that situation. And it's like with my grandfather, the reason he's telling me to invest in self-defense and stuff is because he's aware that I am trans and in a southern state and near other southern states
Ooh.
that are very dangerous to be in. And so he's like, he was like, the other day, he was like, well, you chose to live this lifestyle. So you're just gonna have to, he was like, I can help you like pay for like protection and pay for things to make sure that you know how to defend yourself. And I was like, setting that first part aside, I appreciate it. And like I understand that you're trying. We'll get there sometime soon. But it's like I think they're understanding when I'm able to link different experiences.
Right.
Like having told my grandma, hey, the person who tried to like hate crime me the other day, he actually said something that she used to say to me as a kid under the guise of Christianity. And she's like, oh, like, yeah, girl, hate to have collected that experience, but I wanted to let you know. And she's gotten better in that respect. Like we've grown as a family unit. Me and my grandparents have grown closer because they understand now. They're getting a better understanding of why I pulled away for so long. And now we're able to be closer. And I think my mom is pissed. I'm like, you two could be on that path in just one simple step. Grow the fuck up. So it's like just like listening and watching other people be able to fully cut off their families. Every time I see somebody else cut off their family or I hear about it, I'm like, I'm this much closer. I'm this much closer to my final form.
Yeah, I just really started talking to my mom again, and we're on very, very strict terms. And my aunts, I was still talking to them. And my one aunt who I'm closest with, she was like, but why? She's still your mom. I was like, if she's still my mom, why did she do these things? And I listed down a lot of the worst things my mom has ever done to me and said to me. And she was like, that's not true. That's not true about yourself. She should have never done that to you. So now she like understands, but I had to be like very blunt that if you want the reasons, then I will give them to you.
Exactly. Like we're not beating around the bush about the reasons why we are not in contact. It doesn't matter that you don't remember them because I got them, on a hard drive.
Screenshot it.
Like literally, like I had to. One of the letters my mom wrote me, I had to give to my therapist, bring myself to throw it away, with good and bad reason. Technically, one of the reasons was because every time I wanted to reach out to my mom for support about being queer, being trans, I would always have that letter on hand to remind me of why I shouldn't. And I was like, I told my therapist, I was like, yeah, that's the reason I have it. She was like,
what was the letter for? What was the letter for?
It was one of the many letters that she wrote to me, just saying very, very cool things
Oh,
about me being
yeah.
like queer. That was before she figured out that I was trans. Then she pivoted. Um, and I say bless her heart with all the sarcasm that I can muster in my little tiny body, child. Because I was like, you really just like a full tactical pivot, huh? Like we gotta address the stuff from before. And that's why like she keeps being like, she has said to me so many times, I have already said sorry. I don't know what else you want from me. And I'm like, oh, what do you know?
And then they try to cook your favorite food like once.
Oh
Like
my
and
god.
like
They'll be like,
and
yeah, she's like, do you have your grandma's dressing? Because I love my grandmother's dressing. I literally asked her, I asked her this past Christmas. I said, if I buy it for you, like if I buy all the ingredients, can you make 20 pounds? Because I don't know when I'm gonna see you again, and I need that in my life. But I remember like one time after we had like a real bad split, she texted me. She was like, "Do you have like her dressing recipe?" I was like, "You up to something, huh?"
I'm gonna go grab my tea real quick. I'll be right back. I'm still on it.
I was
Alan,
going
we
to.
can't hear you. We can't hear
Oh,
your mic.
I forgot that I had it muted.
yeah, there's like a button on my one as well somewhere that mutes.
I was that's another thing in Clarkisha's book that she talked about is how like a lot of people use like food to apologize and like it just
They
and
really do change
also
behavior.
like how she looks for that and she talked about how she looked for what's the consolation what's it the thing closure
Mm.
she talks
Mm.
about how she looks for closure and then like how fruitless the pursuit of closure is and like just something also that I related to but I also wanted to talk about how she talks about like her first ventures into love and like maybe some of the things that you guys relate to in that because at least one thing
Mm.
that I definitely did relate to is that I don't know if it's like call it like a late bloomer but I definitely related to like not having like any sort of romantic experiences and like also kind of even realized that even like in the book she kind of miscounts like her relationships and like discounts like whether or not they're relationships or not and I always think that that's like really interesting that like the way that I think that like queer people specifically like what we count and what we don't count like I was talking to my friend Ives on Twitter and she's a trans woman and she was like she always like kind of quotes things with things she'd be like people will be like, what was your first relationship like? Or what's something about like relationships? She was like, I don't know, I've never had one. And I'm like, and then so I asked her like, you know, is it like you haven't had like the idea of like what heteronormativity tells you supposed to, a relationship is supposed to be, or like that you really haven't had any experiences you would really consider like romantic in that way. And then she kind of was like, I really don't know. Like, I really just have no idea. Like, sometimes, like, I think that the ideals that we're taught to like aspire to so often it just like if it kind of falls flat and then like our world is so different now than a lot of the way we were taught things were supposed to go so like you don't really know like what counts what doesn't count is this even a real experience am I in love am I not in love like is this what love is what is love
Yeah.
so and I just that's also something that I really related to in the book and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on.
Yeah. As a like I said, I've lived a lot of life for my little 26 years on this earth. I was actually in 2021, I was engaged to be married and I was gonna have a kid. Um and my partner was non-binary and I that's also part of the book I related to where Clarkisha was just talking about watching somebody love the parts of you that you have tried to eradicate from existence and you're like, damn, it's not that they weren't lovable, it's that they were just so shunned all the time. And that relationship, like, that was, I mean, everybody in my friend group, literally, when I was like, guys, I got engaged to like my ex fiance, they were like, we definitely did not peg you as the first one of our friend group to get engaged. And I was like, that's not even shade because me either. How the fuck did I end up here? And then just like navigating all of that while also understand like figuring out that I was trans at that point too. Just being able to be loved through that process it definitely helped me understand what I need in a partner, but also what I need from friendships. Because I think I had a lot of I had a lot of queer platonic friendships in college. Granted, they were with a lot of white folks, but it was like it was the kind of friendships where like if people didn't think we were dating, I didn't consider us to be good enough friends. Because the bar for people thinking queer people were dating in college was already pretty low. I want to hold hands with my friends sometimes when we're on our way to dinner. We all have cuddle puddles. Like we just genuinely enjoy each other's presence. We enjoy hanging out with each other. Like a lot of our love languages were physical, if we want to talk about love languages anyway. But it was like we were just kind of up under each other anyway because we just enjoyed each other's presence. And being able to have that in a romantic relationship was pretty cool. Every day I find out that the ringer is on or off. Like I don't know how to work an iPhone. I'm so sorry. Every day that I get older, I don't know how to work this phone more and more. But like being able to, I guess, translate and maintain friendship in my romantic relationships, I think that's what I found to be the hardest part. Like now, what, a year and a half out from it, I don't know if I ever really want to have a partner again because I'm fulfilled in my friendships. All of my friendships offer me a lot of different things. The burden should not have to be on one person. It never was just on my fiance to, fulfill any specific need. But it just made me realize a lot of what I was searching for was things that I had in friendships already. I just needed to make sure I actually kept cultivating my friendships and not let them fall to the wayside. And it made me really value what I have with my friends now. Like I just talked to one of my friends, my best friend in the whole wide world. We talk like maybe 3 times a year, dead ass. But it's like every time we pick up, it feels like we never stop. It feels like I talked to her just yesterday instead of 3 months ago. And when I need things, I've learned to ask for them. And if they're able to be met, those needs will be met, or if they're able to be helped, those things can be helped. And I think being in that one romantic relationship was able to help me better ask for the things that I need and better understand the things that I need. But when I left it, I think I realized that maybe a romantic relationship is not necessarily the one for me. I'm so content with just hanging out with my friends and chilling and like going to the bookstore and going home and cuddling and then they leave. Like that is it for me. So it was like late blooming in a sense, but also just better understanding what different relationships mean to me and what different relationships can entail for me, I guess.
Yeah, and like knowing what you actually want versus what you've been taught to want. Like
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
you like I think that we're taught like we're supposed to have these certain things and then we're supposed to have them by a certain time. And then like if we don't have them, we're some kind of like failure. So I think that it was really honest and great that the way that Clarkisha talks about her experience with coming into her own, sexuality and her own relationship with love and relationships and acceptance. And I think that for me, it was just like, I've had all these like, situationships or these, like kind of like halfway kind of things and or like I had like, one night stands, hookups kind of things. And then so like going to like this thing of like, okay, so how long do I have to know someone before I consider like a relationship? Do we actually have to go on dates? Like what is a date? Like 'cause I used to like I would go out with my friends way more often than I would like with someone that I was, hooking up with consistently or something, or like even like stuff that like my friends would consider like, oh, that's your boyfriend. I'd be like, it's not we're not dating, like that's not my boyfriend. And then like I think about it like, well, maybe it kind of is like, I don't know, like, and then like what is like that thing that means to like make something official or like what it even is. And I think that I think that we get on kind of so caught up in the things that we're supposed to have that it gets kind of like it doesn't even really even matter anymore at that point because like we're not even like it's not even about the relationship anymore. It's just about like checking stuff off a list that you think you're supposed
Mhm.
to have. And I think that like do I even want that? Like do I even want a relationship? Do I even want to be? And that was something I really had to come to terms with. It's like I don't think I actually want to be in a relationship. Like I don't think I actually want to put that in order to for what I want and to have like a healthy partnership with someone, I don't think I want to do that. Like I don't think I am maybe even emotionally ready for that. I don't know if I am, you know, in a good place mentally to even be in a relationship and then like having and then not feeling like you are like withholding things from someone or that you are, you know, giving like expecting things or like leading people on or things like that. It's just really, I think, is a really honest conversation to have and something that, you know, I think is helpful to a lot of people.
For sure.
I met my fiance when we were both really, really young. I'm very grateful for that. Um, and we're both the youngest of our siblings. But he had a completely different growing up than I did. So even now it's like nice to have somebody who, you know, is like in your ear, like, you know, my mom, you know, like just things like cleaning. I was like, you know, I have to do this today and do this. He was like, Tiffany, your mom doesn't live here. He was like, we live in our house by ourselves. Like, you don't have to do all of those things today. And like, you know, having somebody to like really say, like, you know, when I was like, stop talking to my mom and stuff. And I definitely took this from him because his mom passed away when he was in high school. And his dad passed away a couple of years ago. So when he was like, you absolutely do not need to talk to your mom. Like, you don't. He was like, everybody says, like, yeah, you know, you only have one mom. He was like, well, she only had one Tiffany. Tell him that. Boom.
Yeah.
Be done with it. And, you know, so that was to have somebody that early on when I'm doing this, you know, is that wasn't that serious at the time, but then became serious. Because I was in college and I was trying to get my degree. um, so it, you know, when you have somebody like that, when you're like not sure, but you know, they're not sure either. I would guess I was blessed that we were able to be young and dumb together. Uh, you know, but you know, I got that. Like when you first find somebody that you like really like, and like, do I really like them for the right reasons? And you know, because I have a white partner, and you know, it takes a minute for you to like sit with that. Like, you know, like, do I like this person for the right things? Do I like them for the right reasons? And so it, you know, it's a question. I do remember he was like, Tiffany, you asked me how I felt about Black Lives Matter when I was driving you home on our second date. He was like, you trapped me in the car. And he was like, and
You
then he
had to
immediately
know.
dived into, so what do you know about feminism? He was like, there was no escaping. It's like, yeah, it's 45 minutes back to my parents' house. Buckle up, buddy. You have a couple things to talk about before things get too serious. Um, so, you know, lucky to find him. But yeah, it definitely is something you have to ask yourself after that much abuse of your parents. Like, you know, do I want this? And I figured out in freshman year pretty easily by seeing a lot of my friends that I did not want any kind of situationship, no matter how bad I felt about myself. It's like, actually, I'm good. It's like, well, Tiffany, get a boyfriend. It's like, because you're all so happy.
Child,
Yeah.
them situationships kind of
Yeah.
fun.
They like literally all of my heterosexual, at least my male heterosexual friends in high school were just in like back-to-back situationships. And it was just to talk about, I'm pretty sure I've already mentioned this in calls with Alan, but yeah, I don't know. As far as like relationships go, I can't say I've had anything official, but I did have like one guy that I did have like a sexual experience with. And something they don't tell you when you're being diagnosed with autism as a child, naturally they don't talk to you about sex. So I just was not ready for like how much of an impact that was gonna have. This is just, yeah, I just struggled a lot with the experience, and I think that frustrated the other guy. So yeah, that sort of like fell to pieces eventually. We also just lived really far away from each other. And the other situation, just because in high school there's like this thing that like straight guys do where they like, it's like sort of like a hazing of form of bullying where they play like gay chicken. So that's sort of like, I have some like lasting trauma from that. So like when I'm approached by a guy like legitimately, it like triggers my fight or flight response, and I like get scared. Um, and like in hindsight, like in my defense, like the guy at uni, like literally introduced himself to me because I was having a nap. He introduced himself to me by like being the biggest spoon, and I'm just like, hmm. So
That is
yeah, I don't
crazy.
know. So now I've just end up with a situation where I'm like hypersensitive, so I don't really know how to process like an intimate encounter, and also I just have an impossibly high standard for feeling safe with someone. So I don't have a lot of experiences, and now I like talk to other people online. Talking to other people online, I'm like people like saying, "Oh, I'm a late bloomer. I didn't get started until I was 19," and I'm just like,
I always
okay.
hated the term late bloomer because I wasn't really. It's like that implies that there's something worth blooming towards. Like when there's a garden,
Mm,
it's like intentionally planted, you know? Things
yeah.
bloom at their own time and their own rate. So that really doesn't make any sense. Um, but I related to when she was talking about, you know, dating women for the first time and being the bigger one, and then some of them just thinking that you're a male and like a male substitute. Like, you know, like a substitute, like, no, like that's not I
Mm,
I present as a cis woman. I am a cis woman. Like I that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I want to be. I remember specifically when I like came out to my sister because she came out first, so it was so much easier for me. The oldest came out, so it's fine. Um, and the first thing that she, you know, was like, you know, I just want you to be like safe. And I was like, Cynthia, are you doing sex? She was like, no, with your heart. Like she was like, because there's a lot of people in this world who will choose like men and women alike who will treat you differently because of your vibe when you're dating. And like it was so nice to have an older sister like just come from the bat to be like, okay, cool, gotcha. Do you know about unicorns? Like somebody like right there to be like, I'm gonna get you hip to the bullshit before any of this starts. But and I still got trapped in some of it.
mm.
And even dating with like Tinder and like the fetishization, like oh god, here we go.
Yeah,
Like
I'd
everything is a gamble.
that's the other reason why I have like zero experience is like I just would not survive the apps. I like see the things that people do on the apps, and I'm just like,
Terrible.
mm.
The amount of covert race play. I'm like, please, what
Yeah, I
makes you
don't even
think?
have that.
I asked
So
you if you wanted to go on a hike. That's not what I. Mm-mm.
Oh my
No,
gosh, that's so crazy. Like
it's
I
terrible.
It's awful.
And when I tell you, like being a what other I always call myself trans masc non-binary. I don't identify personally as trans masc. It just helps people kind of figure out where to put me because I'm just tired of being, you know, googly eyed at, but in like the worst way. And so I was like, let me get on Grinder. Oh my god, that is the scariest place I've ever been. I feel like
the fetish
definitely
the
the
way trans people are
the ooh,
specifically
the
fetishized
blatant
on
racism
Grinder,
on oh,
the way that trans people are specifically fetishized on Grinder is so crazy. Like you
it's
will
so
see people's
scary.
profiles and you could like and then like you'd be like, oh, femmes, trans women, like that's all I want. I
Oh my
want
God, they'll be like, I only want trans women, don't like trans men, don't talk to me. I had someone slide in my DMs that had that as a bio, and I was like, this is
oh my
already.
gosh, when they have
I
those boxes
messaged
that
him about.
slide
I
in
was
your
like,
DMs
this
and you
not
don't
only is
fit into
this
those
chaser
boxes,
mentality,
it's
but like
so
you're not even looking
crazy.
for me. And they were like, "Oh, are you a trans man?" And I was like, "Yes." That I was like, according to your definitions, yes. And they were like, "Oh, well, then I need to change my bio. That's what I'm looking for." I was like, "Hello." But it's like the two things I hate about Grinder are that you can put whatever filters on you want, and that does not stop literally anyone from DMing you. That's how I ended up almost meeting up with this 40-year-old man. It was a terrible experience. Like Grinder is a shit show. The seventh, sixth, fifth, fourth, third, second, and first circles of hell, if I'm gonna be honest. But the second worst part is that they show y'all's distance from each other in feet. I had some person that I was like, I don't want to meet up with you. You actually don't sound safe at all. And they were like, well, I'm only like 500 feet away. I just have to figure out which direction I got to go to like to make the feet go closer, and I could probably find you. Hello?
What? That's so
It's like
crazy.
terrible. And then they actually fixed this finally. But they used to have a button. Like now there's a failsafe on it if you accidentally press it. Because what happened is I accidentally pressed it one time and it'll send your exact location just right off the bat. And so one time my fingers, my thumbs, they do not they don't be thumbing the way they're supposed to. And so I was trying to tell somebody I wasn't interested and I accidentally sent them my exact location. And I had to be like, sorry, I'm at a friend's house playing GTA. I don't know how to fucking play GTA. I was like, I'm at a friend's house playing GTA, didn't mean to send you my location. Ha ha ha. But like they finally fixed it so that now if you accidentally press it, they're like, are you sure
Yeah,
that this is what
that's
you want to do? Because most of the time it's not. I didn't mean to press it
That
at all.
is
Yeah, I got my first stalker from OkCupid when I was in college, and I was like, never mind. But like, I mean, I guess like a lot of people lie about their height, and so I also been on this journey. It was like, I think that I might be undiagnosed autistic in some sense, and I've been looking into like how to get that diagnosis. But I'm very tall. I'm about 5'9". My
Oh,
college roommate,
congrats.
huh?
Congrats.
Thank
To be
you.
5'9".
So I'm 5'9", and then I met my college roommate on Tumblr, and I remember already starting to feel very insecure about like my size and like, color and everything, like compared to like, my friend group. So I was specifically trying to find friends who were around my height and also not skinny. Um, like I have like two big things right now. So, us walking around together definitely stopped that nonsense. um, and I went to a school in the city and stuff. But yeah, internet stalkers from dating apps, especially the ones who were like, you turn them down and then they start calling you all sorts of names. It's like, but you
oh
sweat. You know
Woo.
what? I'm just
And
gonna
I'm
block
like,
you.
and you just said all these nasty things you want to do to me. So what now, baby?
I
Like,
Oh,
how
can't
you're
you
the one.
hit
believe
me up
I've
on a
never
whole
had
nother
that
app
experience.
years later talking about, hey, I'm in your city. If I stay with you, can we fuck? That wasn't happening in the first place.
Stay?
Anyway, so I don't know why you thought that I
That's crazy. The fact that
fuck
the fact
years
that
ago.
the fact that the more like he was like, if I stay, can we like
He
as
was
if like
like
the
that
staying
was the
part,
compensation. I
like
was
yeah, like
like,
I just that like what like
What a weird way to open this conversation.
like I cannot tell you the amount of weird encounters because I had like my psychotic break little episode where I just was like towards the max. Very fun time. I just also would love to have not been, also having a psychotic break in the middle of it. But then this last for escapade, that was a really fun time. The men from that escapade to this day, some of them still message me. They're like, "Hey, what's up? Shut the fuck up. Shut
Yeah.
up."
Tinder connection
This
to
one
message
man
like 5 years
lined
later.
up a controlled substance on my counter. Did not tell me he was doing that at all. I come over to see what he's doing. He's talking about you on a line. Hello? Who told you this could
I was
happen?
one time hooking with this guy and then a needle fell out of his pocket. I was like whoa, I didn't know it wasn't that kind
Literally, and
of
he was like,
party.
it's a safe dose. And I was like, I would go to the hospital. And he was like, no, it's a safe dose. And I was like, you're thinking of the wrong hospital, my guy. That's not the one I'm talking about. And then I guess to prove it was a safe dose, he did both lines. And I was like, this is not making me any more confident in you. And the fact that you should not have had these lines on my counter in the first fucking place. I'm like, the issue still has not been addressed, sir.
It's all
I
the
ha-
safe part.
this is
We're
a
done.
say. I am. I'm. My judgment dictates to you that this is a safe dose, and to make you more confident in my ability to judge dosage, I'm just gonna randomly do twice as much.
Literally. And I was like, dude was like 6'5". I'm sitting at a cool 5'3". I'm like, I don't know what you thought safe. I'm like, these lines look the same to me. And once again, they should not have been on my counter in the first place. So I'm like, I say you get all the extra up. Go ahead and just take care of that and get out my house, actually. It was a wild experience. And then he like messaged me another while later. I had deleted his number, but at the moment I had other men messaging me from unknown numbers. Anyway, it was what a horror phase it was. Woo! I had a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. But I texted, he was like, this is this person. I was like, baby, I don't recognize that name. And he was like, what, you've been with a lot of men? And I say, yeah, I have. That's exactly why I don't recognize the name or the number. I probably deleted it. He was like, that's hot. I said, and now you're getting blocked. Have a wonderful day. And I'm like literally, I was like, would you wasting my time? If I was interested in seeing you again, do you think that I would have deleted your number from my phone? Let's think critically. Let's think
I don't.
critically on that one. I'll tell you what, there's when I tell you the other city that I just left, I finally had to block this one dude. Okay, I need you, tell me why this man had messaged me one time. Dark, and he is dark, like darker skinned than I am. He said, I have a dream fantasy where we have a white kid with blue eyes. I was like, where would that happen at? I don't know what you want me to do about that except cuss you out. Because what does that mean to you? How is that
And the
gonna
link to
work?
Why
find a
would-
therapist.com.
was
If
there
we not
any
meeting
kind
up
of
anyway,
context
I'm like,
that
if we're not meeting up anyway,
What kind
how
of
is that? And
genetic?
then
What
how
kind
are
of
we gonna get
genetic
a
picture did
how you want me to produce a white baby with blue eyes?
What
was
kind
there?
of
And we both
genetic
dark
picture?
as hell.
Was this about like
Explain me that.
adoption?
He was like, I could see it being with a white woman, but I want to have a kid with you.
What? Like what? In what case? In what world was that gonna happen?
What
And
world?
then,
Mind you, the last time I saw this man, I asked him to go to Waffle House with me, and what he did was showed me where the nearest Waffle House was, and then handed me $7. I was
Not even
like,
enough for a
what?
tip.
Literally. And I was like, we're not eating inside because it was like COVID. I was like, we're not eating inside. I'm just gonna grab the food. And he was like, oh, I don't want anything. And I was like, I just asked you if you wanted to go to Waffle House. He said, I thought you meant you wanted me to show you where the Waffle House was. Mind you, the place I was staying is now further away than we were when we were first hanging out. On top of a Waffle House being 5 minutes from the place that I was living. I was like, I was not concerned about where the Waffle House was. That was not the concern at all. This man was so interesting. He told me he had a girlfriend one time. I said, congratulations. He said, I just wanted to get your attention. I miss you.
oh my god.
Sorry,
This
I have
is-
3 cats.
And tell them all I said
They
for
are
me and my mini
very
mins over here.
jealous of
Yeah, that was
Sam.
I learned a lot. Like I said, I collected a lot of experiences. I learned a lot about what I will and won't tolerate because for a long time I struggled with like, okay, I can like compromise on some things because I just want to be loved, to be wanted, to be needed. And then I found out what exactly that meant. I also coincidentally at the same time found out what chasers were. And I was like, I'm gonna rethink that strategy.
Man, I mean, I had
Chasers
a
are so wild.
very
They will just
interesting.
say shit to your face. And I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you say that to me?
Thankfully, I think I've thankfully not had as many experiences like that. My experiences have been, I don't know. My experience is that I am a little too giving in relationships, I think, and I, let people, take advantage of me, and I realize they're taking advantage of me, and I think that because I realize they're taking advantage of me, it's okay that I let them take advantage of me, and it's just like this whole like bad physical thing where like I am, you know, I don't know. It's like our first real like long term like experience with the relationship was like with this guy who's like half in the closet, half out of the closet, came out, not really. And then, it was this whole tumultuous thing, and then it just became like a thing where like, physical distance prevented us from having a real relationship. And then, you know, we it's just become like this on and off again thing. So like it's and like does that even count as a relationship at all? Like it's just I think that one thing I definitely think a lot of people will relate to is in our community is that it definitely is not regular or average as some people would consider it heteronormatively. So I think that even though that you haven't had as much experience, I think a lot of people can relate to your feeling of not being where they want to be or not having what they think they should have. And so you shouldn't feel bad about it at all. And I think also what you should feel good about is that it doesn't like you shouldn't be in a rush to have a bad relationship. I think that
Mm-mm.
I think that
Yeah, that's
that's
what I'm
That's just
something
thinking.
that
Is what think about as well. Is like, would I even be able to cope with someone just like suddenly doing lines on my kitchen bench? I don't
yeah,
know.
it's something that you just would never even think about that should be happening at your house that's
Yeah,
happening.
you're
It's like,
you're assuming all of the people that you're missing out on aren't like absolute weirdos.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I will definitely say, like, just to reiterate Alan's point, there's no sense rushing into a relationship, a situationship, or a one-time encounter that is just gonna be a bad one just to, get it out the way. Like it
Mm,
is not fun when you're doing it just to like count the numbers instead of to,
Yeah.
actually like explore the experience and explore how you feel about it. Like I thought because I hadn't been in a serious relationship until I was with like just until like 23, 24, it wasn't too much, but I was like, I think we'll take it slow. And we U-Hauled for sure. Like I was like, I didn't think that this was gonna be on me like that. And we didn't end up like moving in until like a situation called for it because it ended up just being an emergency situation. But definitely I think understanding that I was getting into a U-Hauling situation helped me prepare for the fact that I was indeed U-Hauling. Cause like God damn, what an experience that was. For
I definitely got this close to someone moving in with me. And then
uh,
I think thankfully I was like, I don't think I want that. Because I already told like
mhm.
if I like I definitely was like seeing the red flags and know what I didn't want, and I know I didn't want that. So thankfully that didn't happen. But it definitely got really close because especially because
Yeah,
I said that like I'm really like giving a relationship. So it made like it literally I literally for some reason I like felt bad that I wasn't letting this man move in with me. And then I was
exactly. You're like, man, I
I'm
really
like, how
should
did
give them
I
my
get
all. I
here?
should give them
Like,
everything I own at my firstborn. I can't believe I'm not doing that. And it's like, let's pick ourselves up off the floor.
like, maybe
um,
that's not a healthy thing to like have. May
Yes. And
have.
like,
still,
yes, and the giving, the constant giving, I think like the reason I was the one that broke off the engagement, and it was because pretty much the same thing. I was giving a lot and my partner was really happy. I really, really enjoyed the relationship. And I also realized I was not as happy and I wanted to be happy. Like I was happy, but I was like, I'll say this, I was content, but I wasn't happy. And I was seeing like that they were fulfilled in the relationship. I was like, that's great, that's great, that's great. And at the same time, I know that I like my people pleasing is on 10 right now. I enjoy being in this relationship. And also, I want to make sure that they have someone who wants to be in a relationship with them and is not content in just being in a relationship. You know what I
Right.
mean? And that was a really hard thing to realize because I did love that person for a very long time. Like I say a very long time. That and you have to take that in lesbian time because I think we were together for like a year and a half. So but like it was one of those things where I don't regret that relationship at all. I love every second of being in a relationship with that person. And also I'm exhausted. One of the reasons I think I'm probably not going to be in a romantic relationship anymore is because I'm exhausted. I might get into a situationship, I might have a couple one night stands, but it's like I think that's where I was realizing like a lot of the things I was trying to get from a relationship, I already had within a lot of my friendships. A lot of my friends love to cuddle when we're like in the same town. A lot of my friends, we can just sit and talk for hours. Or like, one of my friends, I quite literally prop up on FaceTime. They read their book. I play Stardew Valley. We don't say but a word every couple. When I'm like, dude, I absolutely chopped down my fucking apple tree. Can you believe? And they'll be like, oh, damn. And then that's like the whole conversation. And it was just
You
realizing
chopped down
like,
an apple tree at Stardew Valley? Oh wow. That's the kind of hurt I don't wish on nobody.
that's a
Uh
bit. That's
it was pain, but it was
a
just
big
stuff like that.
life state change.
yes,
Um,
the era especially if you know Stardew Valley, you know the work that goes into having a fruit tree.
Yes, and like and then I chopped down another one recently because I so and this I'm just gonna summarize it. When I left here, I thought that I was gonna get all my stuff in 3 months and bring it with me. The stuff that I brought, like that I had in my apartment from where I live now, or from my apartment in the city I live in now. When I moved to the new city, I couldn't afford to get any of my stuff there. So this stuff has actually been sitting in storage for like 2.5 years. I hadn't seen it in forever. So when I pulled back out my Stardew Valley game, I was on like year 8. I forgot the controls. So I chopped down another tree by accident. I was
Oh
like, I
god.
want to fucking
that's traumatic.
Yeah, but it's like I just realized that my farm is actually very large. I just placed everything in the order that I would do it before, which was incredibly ineffective. So I was like, I think I had like maybe four little plots of farm, and I was like, I can't believe this farm is so small. Bitch, you got your barns just everywhere. If we could just, so I'm reorganizing my farm. It's bringing me so much joy, but it's like a lot of things. I had to restart so much. I
Um,
lost one of my cows. One of my cows was just sleeping outside constantly, and I was like, I didn't know you could do that. What happened here? What happened? I'm telling you, I
um,
chopped down that tree and everything went to shit.
to tie it back to Clarkisha's book, the experience she had with the physiotherapist, was that what the word she used? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
physical
It might
therapist.
be,
Yeah.
yeah, they call it a physio in Australia as like a nickname. But it because I just remember a skit where there was like someone drinking a cup of tea and they just said, "Oh, I needed that. I'm going to the physio today." But that's just a line that plays on repeat in my head. But yeah, just the experience. I remember this was when the 10-year high school reunion. There was a guy, and I remember in high school he was like he was like really bad at concealing signals, and I knew that he probably thought I was cute or something. And then like I remember he asked me for my number at that thing, and I'm like, oh, cool. Someone I liked at high school who was like too shy before has asked for my number, and then I gave them my number, and then they never get back to you. And it's just like, am I unapproachable? And when people like give me signals, I like sort of like I
And
I
it,
do this thing. I do it a lot in the Zoom call and the other Zoom call. Me and Eleanor and I do it a lot when like someone like mentions something bedroom related. I'll like sort of like smirk and like pull a face and like I'm like people think I'm judging them when I do that. And I reckon that's the vibes I was giving this person. But yeah, I don't know. I relate to the experience of thinking about it infinitely after the effect.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had a similar experience. It was a lot shorter, but like there was this guy at like the grocery store who like worked at the grocery store. We had like been flirting, and then like I got his number, and then like I texted him, and then like he never responded, and it was like this like, and I'm like, and it's kind of like this thing where like you're like I should go back to the grocery store because I know he's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
there, and then like I should confront him, but like it's like you're like hey maybe that's crazy, like maybe you don't do that. So like it's like I don't know, it's I definitely get like how it could be crazy to like he gave like I understood like where she how she felt in that moment. I mean, obviously it wasn't as deep as the experience she had, so I definitely felt for her because I got where she was like I could understand how she could feel like it's just like you don't even realize that like you had something and then like for it to be is also like at the same time like she was expecting something more at the same time as when it was coming to an end. So it was like
Mm,
she would kind of like have like this thing like she was faced with this aloneness again, which is like something that I can't even imagine like being in that situation and like also having to still deal with like yeah you're kind of healed but like you still also have this injury that you're still really um recovering from, which is a whole thing on itself. So
Yeah,
I
mm,
the
You kind of just
mental,
reach out for care after that for after.
yeah, the like one thing that blew me right after my surgery and after I finished finally physical therapy was like how much all of that from like, sitting for all those months or, not being able to do the things you normally do, how that's like just all still there even if you are mostly mobile again, or start to be mobile again. Because like I know even a year out of physical therapy, I'm still like, you some it's even like you can't escape it in like your dreams. Like, you like have that there's something about looking at your toe and you being like move and it doesn't like
Mm.
when you've gone through a certain surgery like that or you're in just so much pain you can't. And people don't really talk about like the huge mental toll that has on you, especially if you don't have, a lot of people around you for support. It can be really, really scary. So I really felt for her um, during that part of the book. Because
Yeah,
especially me.
I mean, it's so hard to recover from anything and then like be daunted with the fact of like, will I ever get back? And I think that was a particularly vulnerable place for her at that point. So I'm glad that she had at that point at least some people to like, and thankfully that, somebody intervened um for one of the most unexpected places. I just think it's so crazy to like read something like this and thinking like you were only reading this because that stuff happened and because you was able to come out of that stuff. So it's like it's it's so amazing in a way. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we close out, because we are um coming up on 2 hours here. I just wanted to say that like
Oh, gee.
particularly I just think it was so interesting to read a book like this. I've never really read. I think maybe I only read like one other book that was about eating that had to do with eating disorders. So it was which was Jeanette McCurdy's book, but it it like reading these books like how we realize that like yeah like that relationship we have with food like I know it's not really healthy like most people do eat every day like most people do eat multiple meals a day like so maybe like the relationship we have with food is not the healthiest and I think that a lot of times I was in like denial about what I did or did not have an eating disorder because of the it did manifest in the way that we were taught that eating disorders are manifested or because because I'm skinny instead of fat like it's like oh like I can't have an eating disorder because I'm not like fat like I have people in my family who are fat so it's like I think that because and like people say things like oh you need to eat more and then like it's so hard for me to explain it like it's just not that easy for me like it's just like so it's so inspiring to like read stuff like this and then like to become to like oh no I'm not alone like other people have an understanding of like how eating disorders are not the way that people to hear people talk about their eating disorders and to hear like it's not the same for everyone it's not what people usually talk about it's just so it's so helpful.
Yeah, I struggled with eating disorder most of my life, especially, growing up, in a family similar to Clarkisha's in that sense. And when you're growing up and that's you don't really see anybody who is fat with an eating disorder even just represented. So like and it really is detrimental if you like haven't eaten in like 2 weeks and people can only comment on how great you look and how skinny you look even though like you literally ate like a banana the last 2 weeks. um but you look good so you just keep doing it. And how just damaging
Because
and
and
how
there's so much reinforcement from it too.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah
I
especially like I'm thinking about that from the people pleaser perspective too. Like if that's the only thing that you're getting constantly is that like your body hurts, like shit is not feeling good, and people keep saying you look great, you look great, you look great.
hmm
And then like
yeah.
something that Ian talked about like your parents reaffirming like oh you're doing the good thing or like you're the good one or when you have a lot of siblings and it's like this competition you want to be the good one you want to be the one that's doing the best and then so
Yeah,
like to constantly be like oh
Yeah.
like I can't have a problem
My
with this because if I have a problem with this that means I'm not the one that's doing the best and then like so you sort of like
you
hide
push,
parts of yourself to
yes.
like so
my
that you can like be the best.
my mum just last year I got a pajamas as a Christmas present and it has I know Clarkisha would probably hate this, but it has like an avocado with a little smiley face on it, and underneath it the caption says, "I'm the good kind of fat." And like I remember thinking this is really poor taste because this
Mhm.
this pajama shirt is like a size small or whatever because I'm a human coat rack. But like just having the little avocado on it, and then getting up to the part in the book where she's like, "I freaking hate avocados," and I'm like, "Oh man!" But yeah, like my family, like my entire family, no one. I don't think. Oh, my mum, I think, is like, I think struggles with her weight, and like she's always said, like, "Oh, I've never been able to get back to a good weight after having you, Ian," and I'm just like, cool. Anyway, but
Wow,
like,
way to
yeah,
you made me feel so great, mom.
my entire family is like heinously fat phobic. So it's just like a stroke of luck that like none of us have like struggled with weight, but like just being able to see like the fat phobia jump out. And like I was talking to someone in an illustration course I did because they were just showing me photos for some other reason, and they're like, "Oh wow, I was really skinny here. That was when I had my ED." And I was just asking them like, "Can you explain to me like how that starts? How does like an ED start if that's not an inappropriate question to ask?" And she's just like, "Oh yeah, I was just getting really into fitness at the time, and I found out, oh, I don't need to go on a jog this day if I just don't eat anything." And it just turns out it was just easier to not eat food than to exercise, and that's an ED, and you just don't recognize it when it happens.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, and then like I was explaining that to my mum because my mum's fat phobic, like most of my family. They're just all fitness junkies, and they don't understand that sometimes people are fat for reasons that aren't like an ethical or moral failing. Um, but the first words out of my mum's mouth was just like, "Ugh, I wish I could have an ED. I just can't stop eating," and it's just like
Mm.
that like my mum's fairly old, and like the lobe of your brain that just like determines whether something's appropriate to say or not is like decaying a little bit. And it's just yeah, this is the words out of her mouth, and that was when I was like, my my family is like actually really really fat phobic. But because there was just like telling her that someone had an ED, and she's like, "I wish I could have an ED." Like that was something to be envied in other people, because she's like, "I don't like being fat." Um, yeah. Anyway, this all of that culminating in the pajama shirt. I wish I knew where it was, but it just has an avocado on it and a smiley face, and it says, "I'm the good kind of fat," and it's just this cute little avocado. And it's like, this was like tailor made to like
Hurt
burn
someone at Christmas.
Clarkisha's ass. Yeah.
Was made
And
to
I'm like,
hurt somebody at a Christmas party.
this is not an ethical thing to put on a pajama shirt, and I like make sure that I don't wear it whenever I have a Zoom call, because I'm like, I don't want to condone this, but I gotta wear it eventually. But yeah. Anyway, I just thought bring that up.
Mm.
Seemed absurdly relevant to the book when it came up.
Oh, well, I do have to go. Are we doing the Unkindness of Ghosts anytime this week or next
Yeah,
week, possibly?
I think maybe let me go and stop recording.